This video is going to continue on with some maintenance for the Skeeter ZX200, and it's also going to apply to many other models as well. Starting at the front, you have the coupler area should be greased on a regular basis, as well as the slide pin for the lock. Once the coupler is closed, I go in and lock that so it can't open. Your brake slide mechanism should be lightly lubricated. Also, you have the swing tongue, fold-away tongue that the pin should be lubricated, as well as the hinge. One note on that: when you do swing the tongue, just keep an eye on the wirings, that when you go to close it back up, that it doesn't get pinched in there. The winch itself should be greased, and also the handle should be checked. The nut here should be, make sure that remains tight so that it doesn't wear on the shaft. The jack itself does have several grease fittings on it on the back side here, and then also down near the foot. And then you should also lubricate the rotation pin there, and then also the pull pin to release it. The bearings on these trailers use the Vault hub system, so they do not need to be pulled apart and greased on a regular basis. They do use a special grease in there. The big thing with these is just jack them up at least once a year, check them, check the brake hardware on the back side to make sure that's tight, and also you can inspect the brakes themselves. But spin the wheels, check the bearings to make sure there's no play in them and there's no noise. Other than that, you really don't need to do any service to them. Tire pressure, you should check that on a regular basis. Typically they run 50 pounds in them. Also check your lug nuts. They should be torqued to 95 foot-pounds. Trailer lights are all LED, so they should be pretty trouble-free. But also, when you do back your trailer in the water, you want to make sure your lights are unplugged. The brake system on these does use the lockout through the 7-way plug, so you need to have a 7-way plug on your tow vehicle. And when you put your tow vehicle in reverse, it automatically locks the brakes out. If you're in a situation that you need to do either have your lights unplugged or you're towing with maybe say a tractor or something like that, they do make a piece that slides in here that can lock out the brake system manually, and that comes in the owner's manual package. As far as other maintenance items, the 2 ratchet straps, you can lightly oil those on a regular basis to make sure they stay working well. The prop itself, the 2-piece thrust washer needs to be lubricated, and also grease the shaft and the rear spacing washer, and check the prop for fish line. Typically it's a good idea to replace the cotter pin. Always use a stainless steel cotter pin. And then the normal service on the boat, there is a 20-hour initial oil change that should be done. And then after that, it's 100 hours or seasonally. We always like to do a seasonal oil change. And we typically just call that a seasonal winterization. But that will cover changing the, we'll start with stabilizing the fuel in the boat. Changing the fuel filter that's in the rear compartment here, changing the engine oil and filter, and again in the SHO V6 models we do use synthetic oil, and then also the lower unit oil. The bottom drain screw is tucked in beside the water inlet, so there's an Allen head screw here in the center that you have to remove and just loosen, and then the water inlet will come out. And then the access to the screw is there. The lower screw has the magnet on it. You should check the magnet, clean it off, and make sure the gasket is in good shape. They do recommend replacing those gaskets on a yearly basis. Upper plug does not use a magnet, but it obviously has the same kind of washer. These motors do require the HD Yamaha gear oil. We do not recommend anything other than that in them. We do not recommend the mercury oil or aftermarket oil or the standard Yamaha oil. So the other grease points here are on the steering tubes. There's one on here on the swivel bracket. It's also a good idea to put a little bit of grease on the top of the trim ram caps, just to ease those. You don't want to go too heavy with the grease because then it can get onto this area and just make a mess on the stop bar there. So just a light coat is fine. Keep close attention also to this hardware here on the steering. And also, again, these grease fittings here on both sides. They are something that needs to be lubricated on a regular basis because there obviously is a lot of motion in that area that needs to be properly greased. The fuel filter that's on the front of the engine there, we do take apart and inspect the cup, look at the filter. We typically do not change that on a yearly basis, but probably every 2 or 3 years based on condition. But again, the filter in the boat we change every year. Other than that, the normal maintenance would be typically like spark plugs probably every 3 to 5 years, a water pump every 3 to 5 years based on use. Typically we're seeing a good 5-year run on these items. So you're going to do 3 years worth of just normal oil changes, and then 3, 4, 5 years worth of normal oil changes, and then say the 5th year do spark plugs and a water pump, and again go back to normal oil changes, and then probably at the 10-year mark a timing belt, another water pump, another set of spark plugs, and you should be good to go. Yamaha does recommend the use of their ring-free product in both 2- and 4-stroke engines, and we do that as well. And it's a very light mix on that, usually 1 ounce for every 10 gallons of fuel. And that really helps keep the engine clean and keep down on the carbon. So surface of the boat, you should keep a good coat of wax on that. Try to keep it out of the sun and use the cover that it comes with. That will greatly increase the life of the boat and keep the gel nice and shiny, and not require heavy buffing or anything like that. The windshields on it, they should be cleaned with just mild soap and water, or a wax product is fine on them as well, typically like a spray wax. Seat vinyl, you can use marine vinyl cleaners and care products. We don't recommend the use of Armor All by name, just because it's more of a, doesn't have the same UV protection in it that some of the marine products have. Carpets, you can pressure wash the carpets as needed. Try to go light on them as possible, and whenever possible try to get any fish blood off or anything like that. And when not in use, you can run the blower system, or you can open up the compartments just to keep everything dry. I mean, the drier and cleaner everything can be, the better off it'll be in the long run. So any other questions, feel free to give us a call. Our number is 518